Everybody, I'm Kara. This is going to be my monthly reads video for September of 2021. So, one that I want to start with is actually one I got from my local library this month. This is a really popular one. It's called Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It's the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and it's part of Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse, which I know are really popular books. So I read Shadow and Bone, and I wasn't too impressed with it. To me, it was okay. I read the whole book. Um, just in case you don't know what it's about a girl named Alina who finds out she's sort of like a chosen one who has to save her world, and it was okay. And then I did try reading the second book, Siege and Storm, and I actually didn't finish it. I only read part of the book because I don't know, to me I think I just wasn't interested enough to finish the whole story. And I don't know if I'm going to go back to it. Possibly not. And I did try reading another popular one this month. It's called A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling that goes back and forth between Washington, D.C. and our modern world and the Kingdom of Emberfall. And it actually was good. I wasn't too interested in it when I first started reading it. Then I started to get a little more interested as the story went on. So I did wind up kind of liking it. I am going to try reading the second book and see how I like that one. And one more library book. I actually still have it here. This is White as Snow by Tanith Lee. It's an adult fantasy novel that's actually a retelling of Snow White. So, it's about two different women. There's a girl who, she's called Koira, and she's like the Snow White character, and her mother, Arpesia, is kind of like the evil queen character, and, there's also, it also combines the story of Demeter and her daughter Persephone, and how Persephone was taken away by the god of the underworld, and, it was an interesting book. I don't think I've ever read a fairy tale retelling quite like it. So, if you wanted to read a unique Snow White retelling, I would recommend that one. Alright, now some other books. I know I've talked about the Mary Russell series by Laurie R. in my July and August reads video, so now I'm working on catching up on more of the series. So early this month, I read Book 9, The Language of Bees. This one, it takes place in the summer of 1924, and it has to do with Holmes's son, Damien Adler. I think it was mentioned briefly in the second book in the series that Holmes had a son, but this is the book where we actually meet him and find out some of his story. And in this story, his wife and daughter are missing, and Damien comes to his father for help. And the story in this one continues into the 10th book, The God of the Hive. I think this was the first time King did something like this with the series, where because usually each book before this, each book had been a separate mystery, so these do it differently. These ones were okay. They were just okay. And then after that was Pirate King, Book 11. And in this one, Russell joins the crew of a silent film that's going to be filming. It's a film version of the Pirates of Penzance, and it's going to be filming off the coast of Morocco. And she joins them undercover for a case, and I wasn't too into this one when I first started reading it. Then it got more interesting as it read on. So I did like this one a little better than the previous two books. Then book 12 is Garments of Shadows. So this one all it takes place in Morocco shortly after Pirate King. So Russell wakes up in a room in Morocco and she has no idea who she is. She's lost her memory. So we have to the story is we kind of have to find out how what happened that caused her to lose her memory. This is actually the shortest one so far, and I think this one might be my least favorite because I just couldn't really get into the story. Like, this one just wasn't as good as previous ones. So, book 13 is Dreaming Spies. This one takes place partly in the spring of part of it takes place in the spring of 1924, in between books 7 and 8, when after everything that happened in India in the game, which was book 7, Russell and Holmes end up traveling further east, and they go to Japan, and the case comes back a year later in the spring of 1925. And this one was good. I did like this one better than Garments of Shadows. So then I read book 14, The Murder of Mary Russell. This one, the title is actually a little misleading because there's three more books have come out since then that come after this. But in this one, we actually find out more about the past of Mrs. Hudson, who has been Holmes's housekeeper for a long time. Because the case has to do with Mrs. Hudson's son, Samuel, who happens to show up at their house in Sussex one day looking for Mrs. Hudson. So of all the ones I read in September, I think this one was the best. Alright, so now that we've done the Russell and Holmes, I went back to the Poldark books. I read book 7, The Angry Tide. I think I talked about the Poldark books in my June and July reads. So this one continues and finishes up the storylines from books 5 and 6. And I think this was a pretty good conclusion to those storylines. Because there was a big time jump in between that one and book 8, The Stranger from the Sea. Because The Angry Tide ends in December of 1799, and when this book starts, it's 1810. So about 11 years have gone by. So this one, book 8, and book 9, The Miller's Dance, in this one, there's more of a focus on the next generation. You know, Jeremy and Clowens Poldark have grown up, and so has Valentine Warlegan. So we're having more stories about them. Although the other characters are still there, Ross and Demelza and George Warlegan, they are still part of it. Alright, next, one that I read is Sing Me Forgotten by Jessica S. Olson. It's actually sort of a Phantom of the Opera story. It's kind of like, it's about a girl named Isla who was cast into a well at birth because of these powers that she has that people in this world fear. So she's taken in by the owner of an opera house, and she uses her powers to keep all the ticket sales up. But then her life changes when she meets a young man named Emmerich, who's a singer, and she wants to help him be a better singer and be able to be on stage at the opera house. And it was actually a very good story. I wound up really liking it. So if you are a fan of the Phantom of the Opera, I would recommend that book. Alright, now my last one, I have Lady Macbeth's Daughter by Lisa Klein. This story is it's a teen historical fiction book. It's based on William Shakespeare's play Macbeth, and it's about Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's daughter, Albia, who is a character that Lisa Klein made up for this book. So the character Albia, her father had her supposedly had her sent off to die not long after she was born because her leg was misshapen, and she was taken in by the three witches, the three weird sisters who are in the Macbeth play. And when she grows up, she finds out who he is, her parents really were, and the story follows the events of the play. And I really liked the way Lisa Klein fit Albia into the story of Shakespeare. So, those were all my books for September. If you've read any of the books I mentioned, do let me know what you thought, if you liked any of these, or if there's any you'd be interested in reading. So, for October, I'm currently reading The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller, and I plan to finish the Poldark books in October. Still have to read 10, 11, and 12, so those will probably all be in my October reads video. And I'm not sure yet what else there's gonna be, but I'm sure there'll be something good. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye!